I burned her flag to break her spirit. But the moment she smiled at the ashes, I realized I might have just declared war on the wrong species. Look, I have been teaching combat theory at the Galactic Coalition Academy for 17 cycles now. And in all that time I have never, and I mean never, seen a species more overrated than humans. My name is Vexthar, Senior Combat Instructor, decorated veteran of the Calrathian Imperial Guard, survivor of the Draxan campaigns, and I have trained some of the finest warriors in 3 sectors. So believe me when I say I know talent when I see it. And humans? They are not it. The Academy sits on Praxis Station, orbiting the neutral world of Thandros Prime. 63 species send their best and brightest here. Calrathians, obviously. Thranxians, with their forearms and tactical genius. Vorok shock troopers who can bench press a cargo hauler. Silith infiltrators who can phase through walls. Real warriors, proven warriors. And then about 2 cycles ago, the Coalition decided in their infinite wisdom to admit humans to our ranks. Humans. From Earth? That little blue marble in the unfashionable end of the Orion Spur. A gravity well so strong it should have crushed any intelligent life before it evolved. Atmosphere so thick with oxygen it is basically a fire hazard. Weather patterns that shift from frozen death to boiling death depending on which part of the planet you are standing on. And yet, somehow, these barely spacefaring primates convinced the Coalition they deserved a seat at the table. I was standing in the instructor's lounge when I first heard the news. Commander Throlix, a Thranxian who taught advanced logistics, was reviewing the latest personnel files on the central display. "You are joking," I said, looking at the notification. "They are sending us a human instructor." Throlix's mandibles clicked in what I had learned was his version of a shrug. Apparently, the diversity initiative requires representation from all member species. The humans requested an opportunity to contribute to the curriculum. Contribute? I laughed. Actually laughed. What are they going to teach? How to swing from trees? Primitive projectile weapons? Throlix, their species only achieved faster than light travel 30 cycles ago. 30. My grandparents were fighting Star Wars when these creatures were still launching chemical rockets at their own moon. The file says she has an impressive service record, Throlix offered, though even he did not sound convinced. "Oh, I am sure," I said, dripping sarcasm like a leaking coolant line. "Impressive by human standards, perhaps. Let me guess, she fought in one of their adorable little civil conflicts. Won a medal for not accidentally shooting her own troops." I pulled up the file. Major Elena Vasquez, human. Female. 38 standard cycles old, which apparently was young for their species to achieve that rank. Decorated officer, multiple combat deployments, instructor certification from some Earth military academy I had never heard of. Her photo showed a lean woman with dark hair pulled back severely, brown eyes that stared at the camera with uncomfortable intensity, and an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. "She arrives next cycle," Throlix said. "The Dean wants all senior instructors to attend her welcome orientation." "Of course he does," I muttered. "Cannot have anyone's feelings hurt. Everyone gets a participation trophy in the glorious Coalition." But I went to the orientation, mostly because refusing would have meant paperwork, and I hate paperwork more than I hate humans. The assembly hall was half full. Most of the other instructors showed up out of curiosity more than respect. We all wanted to see what kind of catastrophe the humans would send us. Dean Corvash, an ancient Vorok, who had been running the academy since before I was born, stood at the podium. "Colleagues, please welcome our newest faculty member, Major Elena Vasquez of Earth." She walked onto the stage, and I will admit, I was surprised. Most humans I had seen were soft, pale creatures who looked like they would break if you sneezed on them. This one moved differently. There was a predator's grace in her walk, a controlled economy of motion that suggested combat training. She wore a dark uniform I did not recognize, fitted but practical, with no unnecessary ornamentation. No medals, no ribbons, nothing to prove. "Thank you, Dean Corvash," she said. Her voice was clear, projected without shouting, with an accent I could not place. "I am honored to join the Academy's faculty. I know my species is new to the Coalition, and I know many of you have concerns about whether humans can contribute meaningfully to an institution with such a distinguished history." At least she was self-aware. I would give her that much. "I am here to teach combat doctrine, specifically close-quarters combat and asymmetric warfare tactics," she continued. "I look forward to learning from all of you, and I hope you will give me the opportunity to share what humanity has learned from our own experiences." Polite, diplomatic, almost rehearsed, I yawned deliberately, making sure she could see it. Her eyes found mine across the room. For just a moment, something flickered in that gaze. Not anger, not embarrassment, something colder, something calculating. Then she smiled, a small professional smile that did not reach her eyes, and continued her introduction. After the orientation, several instructors gathered around her, offering welcomes and making small talk. I stayed back, watching. She handled herself well enough, I suppose. Answered questions, laughed at jokes, played the game, but I could see the others were just being polite. Nobody really believed she belonged here. "Not going to introduce yourself?" Thralix asked, appearing at my shoulder. "Why bother?" I said. "She will wash out in half a cycle. Humans always do. They come in confident, thinking their little planetary conflicts prepared them for real warfare. Then they see what actual soldiers can do, what real combat looks like when you are fighting species that evolved under higher gravity, or with multiple limbs, or with natural armor. They realize they are outclassed and they quietly request reassignment." "She does not look like someone who quits easily," Thralix observed. I snorted. "They never do. Until they do." But as I watched Major Elena Vasquez shake hands with Dean Corvash, I felt something unfamiliar. Not worry. I do not worry about humans, but perhaps, maybe, the smallest flicker of curiosity. That expression she had given me, that cold, measured look. I had seen it before, on the faces of enemies right before a battle, on the faces of warriors who knew something you did not. I shook off the thought. Ridiculous. She was human, from a primitive death world. She might last a few months playing teacher to our lower-ranked students. But the moment she stepped into the real arena, the moment she had to prove herself against actual warriors, she would break. They always did. The faculty meeting happened 3 weeks after Vasquez arrived, and honestly, I had almost forgotten about her. She taught her classes, kept to herself, and stayed out of the way of real instructors. Exactly what I expected. The humans were learning their place. Then Dean Corvash brought up the curriculum review. "We need to discuss the close-quarters combat syllabus," the dean said, his massive Voric frame filling the head of the conference table. "Several students have complained that the current program does not adequately prepare them for urban warfare scenarios." I leaned back in my chair. The current program has produced decorated officers for 40 cycles. If students are struggling, perhaps they need to train harder, not have the standards lowered. "With respect, Instructor Vicstar," Major Vasquez said from across the table, her voice calm and measured. "The complaint is not about difficulty. It is about relevance. Modern combat is increasingly urban, increasingly asymmetric. Teaching formation tactics designed for open field engagements does not translate." I stared at her. Was she seriously critiquing the program? "After 3 weeks? Major Vasquez," I said, making sure to emphasize her inferior rank compared to my senior position. "The tactics I teach have been proven in actual combat. Real combat. Against real enemies. Not the minor skirmishes humans call warfare." "Minor skirmishes," she repeated, no emotion in her voice. "Interesting perspective." "Facts, not perspective," I continued. "Humanity has been a spacefaring species for, 30 cycles? The Calrithian Empire has been conducting interstellar warfare for over 3,000 cycles. We have fought in environments you cannot imagine, against enemies that would make your worst nightmares look like children's stories. So forgive me if I do not immediately rush to adopt the tactical philosophies of a species that only just figured out fusion drives." Several instructors shifted uncomfortably. Thralix made a warning click with his mandibles. But I was just getting started. "Let me ask you, Major," I said, standing up for emphasis. "How many actual battles has Earth fought against alien species? Real battles, not simulations or training exercises." "2, she said without hesitation. "The Draxi border conflict and the Quellan pirate raids." I laughed. Actually laughed. "The Draxi border conflict? You mean that 3-day misunderstanding that was resolved diplomatically? And the Quellan pirates? Those scavengers who run at the first sign of organized resistance?" "Major, I have had training exercises more intense than Earth's entire military history. Yet here I am," she said quietly, teaching at the most prestigious military academy in coalition space. Because of politics, I shot back. Because the coalition wants to make humans feel included. Not because you have earned it. The room went silent. I may have gone too far, but honestly, someone needed to say it. Dean Corvash cleared his throat. Instructor Vextar, this is inappropriate. Is it? I asked. Or is it inappropriate to pretend that all species are equally capable? We accept students and faculty based on merit, Dean. Or at least we used to. Vasquez stood up slowly. She was shorter than me, probably only came up to my shoulder, but she held my gaze without flinching. You think I have not earned my position here? I think you are out of your depth, I said. Nothing personal, Major, just facts. Facts, she said, nodding slowly. All right, let me propose something. A demonstration. A demonstration? You clearly believe Calrathian combat doctrine is superior to human methods. I think adapting to modern warfare is essential. Let us settle this definitively. She looked around the table at the other instructors. A live combat scenario. Full contact simulation. Your methods against mine. I blinked. Was she challenging me? Me. You want to fight me? I asked, incredulous. Not personally, she said. That would prove nothing. No, I propose a tactical exercise. You select a team of students, I select a team. We each use our preferred doctrine. Scenario-based warfare in the combat simulator. Full sensory feedback, pain responses, the complete package. Thrillix leaned forward. Major Vasquez, such exhibitions are typically reserved for advanced students, not faculty. Then let us make it educational, she said, still watching me. Open it to the entire academy. Let the students see both approaches in action. Let them decide which is more effective. Oh, she was clever, framing it as education rather than a personal conflict, making it about the students rather than pride. But I could see through it. She wanted to prove herself, wanted to show that humans belonged here, and I was going to crush that delusion. I accept, I said immediately. Name your terms. Urban warfare scenario, she said. Your choice of terrain. Your choice of mission parameters. I want you to have every advantage. The arrogance. The absolute arrogance. Offering me every advantage as if she needed to handicap herself to make it fair. One condition, I added. We make this interesting. The losing instructor has to publicly acknowledge the superiority of the winner's methods, in front of the entire academy. Agreed, she said without hesitation. In one addition, the winning side's tactical doctrine gets primary placement in the curriculum revision. Dean Corvash looked between us. This is highly irregular. This is necessary, I said. If we are going to maintain standards at this academy, we need to establish what those standards are based on. Proven combat effectiveness or political correctness. The dean sighed. Very well, I will approve this as an official exhibition match. 1 week from today, you each select 5 students. I will establish the scenario parameters and victory conditions. And Vexter, Elena, remember, this is about education, not ego. Of course, Dean, I said, already planning my strategy. Vasquez just nodded. As the meeting broke up, other instructors surrounded us. Most were congratulating me, already assuming my victory. A few approached Vasquez with what looked like sympathy, as if she were a doomed woman walking to her execution. Brave of you, I heard one tell her, foolish but brave. I caught Thrylix watching me with his compound eyes. You seem very confident. Because I am, I said. She handed me every advantage. I choose the terrain. I choose the mission. Thrylix, I have been teaching advanced combat for 17 cycles. She has been here 3 weeks. This is not going to be a contest. This is going to be a lesson. For whom? He asked. I frowned. What? But he just clicked his mandibles and walked away. Across the room, Major Elena Vasquez was gathering her materials. She glanced up, met my eyes, and smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a nervous smile. The smile of someone who knew something I did not. I shook off the feeling. Ridiculous. She was human. I was Calrathian. I was trained by the finest military in the galaxy. This was going to be easy. I spent the next 6 days preparing my team, drilling them on urban assault tactics, coordinating fire patterns, establishing communication protocols. But honestly, The real preparation was psychological. I needed to break Vasquez before the match even started, shake her confidence, make her doubt herself. So I arranged a little pre-match ceremony. The combat arena was packed. Every student at the academy showed up, along with most of the faculty. The holographic terrain generators hummed in standby mode, waiting to create our battlefield. My team stood at attention on one side, 5 of the best students I had ever trained, 2 Calrathians, a Varric, a Threnxian, and a Silith. Each one could probably take on 3 average soldiers alone. Vasquez's team stood opposite. 4 humans and 1 Centaurian who apparently believed in the humans' methods. They looked nervous. Good. I walked to the center of the arena, carrying a small case. Before we begin, I announced, my voice carrying through the space, I want to make something clear. This exhibition is about more than tactics. It is about understanding our place in the galaxy, understanding what real warriors look like. I opened the case and pulled out a replica Earth flag. Blue and white and red, those primitive colors they were so proud of. I had ordered it fabricated specifically for this moment. Humanity likes to think they are special, I continued, holding the flag up. They call their planet a death world. They brag about their gravity, their weather, their predators. They act as if surviving on one hostile planet makes them warriors. I could see Vasquez watching me, her expression unreadable. But survival is not the same as strength. Endurance is not the same as skill. And sentiment, I held the flag higher. Sentiment is not the same as honor. I ignited the plasma torch and touched it to the fabric. The flag burned beautifully. The synthetic material caught immediately, flames eating through those primitive symbols, turning their cherished colors to ash. Some students gasped. Others cheered. I let it burn completely before dropping the remains to the arena floor. That, I said, grinding the ashes under my boot, is what I think of Earth's military traditions. Outdated, primitive, worthy only of fire and forgetting. The arena went silent. Everyone turned to look at Vasquez. She walked forward slowly, her boots clicking on the arena floor. She stopped at the pile of ash, looked down at it for a long moment, then looked up at me, and smiled. Not a forced smile, not an angry smile. A genuine, almost amused smile. You know, she said conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather, flags are just symbols, cloth and dye. The thing about symbols, Instructor Vexthar, is that they only have the power you give them. She knelt down, scooped up a handful of ash, and let it filter through her fingers. You burned a replica to make a point, to intimidate me, to prove something. She stood up, dusting her hands off. All you proved is that you needed to. That unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I expected anger, outrage, something I could use. Instead, she just seemed, what? Patient. Like a teacher waiting for a slow student to understand a lesson. Shall we discuss the scenario parameters? She asked, turning to Dean Corvash. The dean, looking uncomfortable, activated the display. Urban environment, hostile territory. Vexthar's team will defend a fortified position containing a high-value target. Vasquez's team must extract the target within 2 hours. Full sensory feedback including pain simulation. Incapacitation results in removal from the scenario. All students have agreed and signed waivers. Terrain? Vasquez asked. I smiled. Kalaratha City. Capital of my homeworld. I grew up in those streets. My team has trained in that exact simulation for 6 cycles. Your terrain, your rules, she said, nodding. And the target? Will be defended by automated systems in addition to my team, I said. This is not just about combat. It is about tactical planning, adaptation, overcoming superior defensive positions, all the things human doctrine supposedly excels at. Understood, she said. Major Vasquez, Dean Corvash said carefully. You can choose a different scenario if you feel this gives too much advantage. No, she said, still looking at me with those calculating eyes. This is perfect. Instructor Vexthar wants to prove his methods in his environment using his rules. That makes the lesson clearer. Lesson? I asked. When I win, she said simply, there will be no excuses. No way to claim I had an advantage or you were handicapped. Just pure tactical effectiveness. The confidence. The absolute confidence in her voice. It was not bravado, it was not false courage. She genuinely believed she would win, which meant she was either delusional or knew something I did not. Teams, take your positions. The dean announced. Scenario will initialize in 5 minutes. Spectators, please move to the observation galleries. I walked back to my team, my mind racing. Something felt wrong. The flag burning had not rattled her. The terrain advantage had not worried her. She was too calm, too prepared. Instructor, one of my students asked, a young Calorathian named Krevnal, is everything all right? Fine, I said. Just remember your training. Stick to the plan. Hold your positions. They will have to come to us, and when they do, we will cut them down. Across the arena, Vasquez was giving her team final instructions. I could not hear what she was saying, but her team was nodding, focused, professional. The holographic terrain shimmered into existence around us. Suddenly we were standing in a perfect replica of Kalaratha City. Narrow streets, multi-level buildings, countless hiding spots and ambush points. My city, my advantage. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3. I pushed away my doubts. I was Calorathian. I was trained. I was superior. 2, 1. Scenario active. Begin. And the hunt was on. The first 30 minutes went exactly as I planned. My team took positions in and around the target building, a 3-story structure in the commercial district. Krevnal and the other Calorathian, Daxiel, held the high ground on the roof with long-range plasma rifles. The Vorukgrath positioned himself at the main entrance, his massive frame and natural armor making him a living wall. The Threnxian, Quill, monitored security feeds from multiple angles with her 4 arms managing different systems simultaneously, and the Silith Shade moved through the building's interior, ready to phase through walls and ambush anyone who breached our perimeter. It was textbook defense, overlapping fields of fire, multiple fallback positions, no blind spots. All positions secure, I reported to my team through the comm system. Remember, they have to come to us. Let them exhaust themselves trying to find a way in. We own this terrain. The observation galleries above the simulation were packed with students watching our every move through the holographic feeds. I could hear the murmur of commentary, and I made sure to stand where they could see me clearly, confident, in control, everything a proper instructor should be. Movement, Sector 3. Quill reported. 200 meters out, moving between buildings. Visual confirmation, I asked. Negative. Just motion sensors. They are being cautious. Let them be cautious, I said. Caution will not save them. For the next 20 minutes we tracked sporadic movement around our position. Vasquez's team was probing, testing, trying to find weaknesses, but there were none. Every approach was covered. Every angle watched. They are scared, Grath rumbled over the comm. They know they cannot breach. Patience, I said, though privately I agreed. This was going to be easier than I thought. Let them waste time. The clock works against them, not us. Then, at minute 43, they made their move. Contact, northeast. Krevnal shouted. 3 hostiles advancing on the service entrance. Engage, I ordered. Plasma fire lit up the simulated night. Krevnal and Daxil poured suppressive fire down from the roof, their shots precise and disciplined. The advancing team scattered, taking cover behind cargo containers and ground vehicles. I could see them clearly now through the tactical overlay, 2 humans and the Centaurian. Quill, redirect automated defenses to northeast quadrant, I commanded. Done, she confirmed. Turrets acquiring targets. The defensive turrets swiveled and opened fire. The enemy team was pinned down, unable to advance, taking sporadic hits that would not kill them in the simulation but would certainly hurt. Pain compliance was part of the training. Make them feel the cost of poor tactics. Where is Vasquez? I asked, scanning the feeds. Unknown, Quill said. I only see 4 of their team. Find her, I snapped. She is planning something. But before Quill could respond, the enemy team at the northeast entrance suddenly broke cover and retreated. Not a fighting retreat, a full run. They abandoned their position and disappeared back into the city. They are running, Daxiel laughed. Already. Hold positions, I said, suspicious. This could be a feint. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. No further contact. Instructor, Krevnal said. Should we pursue? I considered it. The clock was ticking. They had less than an hour left. If we eliminated their team members now, the match would be over. Grath, you hold the entrance, I said. Krevnal, Daxiel, you have the high ground. Quill, stay on sensors. Shade, you are with me. We are going hunting. It was a calculated risk, but with our defensive position so strong, I could afford to be aggressive. Show the students watching that superior tactics meant not just defending, but dominating. Shade and I moved into the city streets, our weapons ready. The simulation was incredibly detailed, every texture and shadow rendered perfectly. For a moment I actually felt like I was back home on Kalaratha, hunting enemies through familiar territory. Motion, 40 meters ahead, Shade whispered, his form partially phased to avoid detection. I saw them, 2 human soldiers moving through an alley, weapons down, apparently unaware we were near. Too easy. On my mark, I subvocalized. 3, 2, 1, mark. We opened fire simultaneously. Both humans went down hard, their combat suits registering killing hits. They would be locked out of the scenario now, unable to help their team. 2 down, I reported. Vasquez is down to 3 effectives. Acknowledged, Quill responded. Still no sign of her or the other human. Shade and I advanced carefully, checking corners, clearing rooms. This was what proper urban combat looked like. Methodical, professional, not whatever reckless nonsense the humans probably tried to teach. We rounded a corner into a wider street and walked directly into a trap. The explosion was not real, of course, but the simulation made it feel real. Pressure, heat, pain receptors screaming. I was thrown backward, my suit registering massive damage. Next to me, Shade flickered and solidified, his phasing ability disrupted by the blast. Before I could recover, plasma fire erupted from 3 different positions, high, low, and flanking. Overlapping fields of fire, no escape routes. Shade took multiple hits and collapsed, his suit flashing red. Eliminated. I managed to roll behind cover, but my suit was badly damaged. Systems failures cascading. I had maybe 30 seconds before complete shutdown. Ambush, I shouted into the comm. Southwest sector. They were waiting for us. Shade is down. I am compromised. Instructor, how? Krevnal asked, confused. How indeed? They had known exactly where we would be. They had prepared the ambush site perfectly, and they had baited us out with those 2 soldiers we eliminated. Except those soldiers had not been trying to advance. They had been leading us into a kill zone. My suit died. The simulation locked me out. I could still see and hear, but I could not move or communicate with my team. Major Elena Vasquez stepped out from her position, weapon lowered, and looked down at me. She did not gloat, did not smile, just gave me one long analytical look, like a scientist studying an interesting specimen. Then she moved on, her remaining 2 soldiers following in perfect formation. Quill. Report. I heard Krevnal say over the open channel. 3 hostiles moving on our position. Fast, Quill responded, tension in her voice. They are not using the routes we expected. They are moving through the buildings, using vertical access we did not account for. Impossible, Daxiel said. We mapped every approach. They are not using the approaches we mapped, Quill said. They are making new ones. I wanted to scream. I was locked out, forced to watch as my perfect defensive plan started to crumble. How was she doing this? We had every advantage. We knew this terrain, we had superior positions. Unless she had been studying me. Not just studying tactics. Studying me specifically. Every demonstration I had given. Every lecture on urban warfare. Every example I had used in class. She had been there, watching, learning, cataloging my preferences, my patterns, my predictable responses. I did not know the terrain better than her. She knew me better than I knew myself. Perimeter breach. Southeast. Grath bellowed. They are coming through the maintenance tunnels. Impossible. Those tunnels are too small for... They're human, Grath roared. They fit. Of course. Smaller frames. Lower mass. They could use infiltration routes my larger Calarethian students could not. Another advantage I had handed her by choosing this terrain. Plasma fire echoed through the simulation, shouting, confusion. Grath is down, Quill reported. They are inside the building. Hold the target room, Krevnal ordered. Everyone fall back to the target room. I could only watch the tactical display, seeing my carefully constructed defense fall apart piece by piece. Vasquez's team moved like water, flowing around obstacles, adapting instantly, hitting from unexpected angles. And somewhere in that chaos, Major Elena Vasquez was executing a plan she had built specifically to counter everything I had taught her about how I fight. She had not been intimidated by the flag burning. She had not been worried about my terrain advantage, because she had been planning this from the moment I accepted her challenge, and I, arrogant fool that I was, had never seen it coming. From my locked position in the street, I could only watch the tactical feeds as my entire defensive strategy collapsed in real time. It was like watching a building demolition, each support removed methodically until the whole structure came down. Quill, status? Krevnal barked. They disabled the eastern turret bank, Quill reported, her voice strained. Breaching charges, perfectly placed. They knew exactly where the power feeds were. Of course they did, because I had taught a class on defensive turret vulnerabilities just 2 weeks ago. Vasquez had been there, sitting in the back, taking notes. Daxil, do you have a shot? Krevnal asked. Negative. They are using smoke generators. Thermal is scattered. I cannot wait. Contact. Plasma fire erupted on the roof. I watched through the overhead feed as Vasquez herself appeared behind Daxilil, moving impossibly fast. She must have scaled the exterior wall using climbing gear, approached from the one angle we had assumed was inaccessible. Daxil went down in seconds. Roof compromised, Krevnal shouted. She is on the roof. How is she on the roof? I knew how. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on their death world. Climbing, running, endurance. While we Calrathians were stronger, they were built for exactly this kind of sustained adaptive movement. I had called Earth primitive, but their gravity was 0.3 standard higher than Calaretha. Every human in that simulation had trained their entire lives under conditions that would exhaust my students in minutes. They were not stronger, but they did not need to be stronger, they just needed to outlast us. Fall back to the target room, Krevnal ordered. Quill, seal the doors. Sealing now. But Vasquez's team was already moving. I watched as one of her human soldiers, a compact woman with short blonde hair, produced a breaching charge. Not a standard military charge. Something improvised, built from components that would not trigger our sensors. They blew the reinforced door in one shot. Breaching, Quill screamed. The Centaurian went in first, absorbing fire from Quill's defensive position. His shields flared but held. Behind him, Vasquez's other human soldier, a tall man with dark skin, threw something I could not identify. Flash bang, Krevnal shouted, but it was too late. The simulation rendered the effect perfectly. Quill's multiple eyes, her greatest advantage, became her greatest weakness. She was completely disoriented, all 4 arms flailing. She went down without landing a single hit. Now it was just Krevnal, my best student, alone in the target room with the objective. The last line of defense. Vasquez entered the room slowly, weapon raised. Her 2 remaining soldiers flanked her, creating overlapping fire lanes. Professional. Controlled. Surrender, Vasquez said. You are outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Never, Krevnal snarled. He was young, proud, Calrathian. He would rather die than quit. He opened fire. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but I will remember it for the rest of my life. Vasquez moved, not like a soldier, like something else. Something that had spent millions of years learning to hunt on a planet where everything wanted to kill you. She dropped, rolled, came up behind cover that had not been there a moment ago because she had kicked a storage container into position while moving. Her soldiers split, drawing Krevnal's fire, forcing him to choose targets. And Vasquez flanked him, through a route that should not have existed. Through a ventilation duct that I had specifically dismissed as too small for combat use. Too small for Calrathians. Not too small for humans. She emerged behind Krevnal and put 3 shots into his back before he could turn. Center mass. Perfect grouping. He collapsed, his suit going red. Eliminated. Vasquez secured the target, a simulated data core, in exactly 47 seconds. She and her team exited through the maintenance tunnels, extracted to the designated safe zone, and transmitted mission success. The simulation ended. Total elapsed time 1 hour 12 minutes 37 seconds. They had completed the objective with 47 minutes to spare, and they had eliminated my entire team without losing a single member. The arena was completely silent. I stood there, released from the simulation lock, staring at the scoreboard. 5-0. Total victory. Absolute domination. This was not possible. This could not be possible. Instructor Vexter, Dean Corvish's voice echoed through the arena. Do you have anything to say? I looked up at the observation galleries. Thousands of students staring down at me. My colleagues, my peers, all watching, all waiting. I had burned the human flag. I had mocked their capabilities. I had promised to prove Calorathian superiority. And I had been destroyed. Systematically, professionally, completely. Major Vasquez walked across the arena floor. Her team behind her. She stopped in front of me, and for the first time I saw what was really in those eyes. Not anger, not arrogance, pity. She pitied me. You fight like you teach, she said quietly, so only I could hear. By the book, predictable patterns, established doctrine. It works when your opponent follows the same rules, but we do not follow your rules, instructor. We cannot afford to. We are smaller, newer, less experienced, so we adapt, we learn. We survive by being unpredictable. You studied me, I said, my voice hollow. I studied everything, she said. Your lectures, your tactics, your preferences. You taught me exactly how you would fight, and I planned accordingly. That is not cheating, instructor. That is intelligence gathering. That is what real warriors do. She turned to address the crowd, her voice carrying through the arena. Earth is a death world. Gravity that crushes. Weather that kills. Predators everywhere. We did not evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We evolved to be the most adaptable. To think, to plan, to survive against superior opponents by being smarter, not stronger. She looked back at me. You wanted to teach everyone a lesson today. Instructor Vextar, you succeeded. Just not the lesson you intended. The crowd erupted, not in applause, in shocked murmuring. Arguments breaking out. Students questioning everything they had been taught. I had spent 17 cycles building a reputation. 17 cycles establishing doctrine. 17 cycles being certain of my superiority. And in 72 minutes one human had shattered all of it. My legs felt weak. My throat tight. This was not just a loss. This was a fundamental destruction of everything I believed. Krevnal approached, his face a mask of confusion. Instructor, how did they? I do not understand. Neither do I admitted, the words tasting like ash, like burning flags. And that, more than anything else, was the truth I could no longer avoid. I did not understand. I had never understood. And Major Elena Vasquez had known that from the beginning. Dean Corvish called an assembly the next day. Mandatory attendance for all students and faculty. The auditorium was packed, the air thick with tension and speculation. Everyone knew what was coming. I sat in the front row, as required. My students sat behind me, still processing their defeat, still trying to understand how everything they had learned had failed them so completely. Vasquez stood at the podium, composed and professional. No triumph in her expression, no smugness. She looked like she was about to teach a class, which I suppose she was. Yesterday's exhibition was not about humiliating Instructor Vextar, she began, her voice clear and steady. It was about demonstrating a fundamental principle that every warrior must understand. Your enemy will not fight the way you want them to fight. They will not follow your doctrine. They will not respect your expectations. She activated the display behind her, showing tactical breakdowns of the battle. Instructor Vextar made several critical errors. First, he assumed his experience made him superior. It did not. It made him predictable. Second, he chose terrain he knew well, thinking it gave him advantage. It did not. It gave me a map of his thinking. Third, he believed physical superiority mattered most. It did not. Adaptability mattered most. Krevnal stood up suddenly. But we followed proper doctrine. We held superior positions. We had every tactical advantage. You had the advantages Instructor Vextar taught you to value, Vasquez said, not unkindly. But those advantages only work when your enemy values the same things. We did not try to match your strength. We bypassed it. We used routes you dismissed as unusable. We exploited vulnerabilities you did not think were vulnerabilities. We fought asymmetrically because symmetrical warfare would have been suicide. She advanced to the next slide, showing the moment she scaled the building. Humans evolved under 1.3 times standard gravity. Every movement we make here is easier for us than it was on Earth. Every climb, every sprint. We train in conditions that would exhaust most species. Not because we are superior, but because our homeworld forced us to adapt or die. Death world advantages, someone muttered from the back. Yes, Vasquez agreed. Death world advantages, but also death world thinking. On Earth, predators are everywhere. We learn to be cautious, to plan, to think 3 steps ahead. We learn that the biggest, strongest creature is not always the one that survives. The smartest one survives. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd before settling on me. Instructor Vexthar burned a replica of my planet's flag before the match. Some of you probably wondered why I did not react with anger, why I did not seem insulted. The auditorium went quiet. I felt hundreds of eyes turn toward me. I let him burn it because it proved something important. Vasquez continued. It proved he needed to. He needed to try to make me angry, to throw me off balance, to gain a psychological advantage. That told me he was uncertain. That told me he was afraid. Not of me specifically, of what I represented. Change. Challenge. The possibility that his way was not the only way. My face burned. She was dissecting me in front of the entire academy. The flag is a symbol, she said. Symbols matter, but they are not what makes us strong. What makes us strong is understanding why we fight. Understanding that respect is earned through action, not demanded through tradition. Understanding that every opponent, no matter how primitive they seem, might know something you do not. She looked directly at me now. Instructor Vexthar is an excellent tactician. His doctrine has merit. His experience is valuable. But he made the fatal mistake of assuming his experience was the only experience that mattered. He stopped learning. He stopped adapting, and in warfare, the moment you stop adapting is the moment you start dying. Dean Corvash stood. Major Vasquez, per the terms of the exhibition, what changes do you propose to the curriculum? Integration, not replacement, Vasquez said immediately. Instructor Vexthar's methods should still be taught. Formation tactics matter. Defensive doctrine matters. But we add human asymmetric warfare doctrine as a complementary system. We teach students to think flexibly, to adapt based on opponent and situation rather than following one rigid approach. She glanced at me again. And I propose Instructor Vexthar help teach it. Because the lesson he learned yesterday is more valuable than any victory. He learned what it feels like to face an opponent who refuses to fight on your terms. That is a lesson every warrior needs to understand from both sides. The auditorium erupted in discussion. Students arguing, instructors debating. But I just sat there numb. She was offering me a way out, a way to save face, to turn my humiliation into education. Part of me wanted to refuse, to rage against this upstart human who had destroyed everything I'd built. But a larger part of me, a part I had been ignoring, knew she was right. Over the next weeks, the academy changed. Vasquez's doctrine spread through the student body like wildfire. Suddenly everyone wanted to learn human tactics. Asymmetric warfare became the most popular elective. Students began questioning established doctrine, thinking creatively, approaching problems from new angles. And I watched. I attended her classes sometimes, sitting in the back, seeing how she taught. She was good, methodical, patient. She did not just teach tactics. She taught thinking. One day, about a month after the exhibition, she found me after one of her classes. Instructor Vexthar, she said. I meant what I said. I would like you to help develop the integrated curriculum. Your experience combined with our adaptability could produce something exceptional. Why? I asked. Why offer me anything after I tried to humiliate you? Because you are not a bad instructor, she said simply. You are a good instructor who fell into a common trap. You became rigid. It happens to everyone eventually if they are not careful. The question is whether you can adapt now. I looked at her for a long moment. This human who I had dismissed, who I had mocked, who I had underestimated so completely. I will consider it, I said. She nodded and turned to leave. Major Vasquez, I called after her. The flag. If I could take it back. I know, she said, but you cannot. None of us can take back our mistakes. We can only learn from them and do better. She left, and I stood alone in the empty classroom, surrounded by tactical displays showing human warfare doctrine, thinking about flags and pride in the cost of certainty. I had been so sure, so absolutely certain of my superiority. And that certainty had blinded me to the truth that Major Elena Vasquez understood instinctively. In warfare, in teaching, in life, the moment you stop questioning yourself is the moment you become vulnerable. I had stopped questioning decades ago. She never stopped questioning at all. That was the difference between us. Not species, not strength, not experience. Humility. The willingness to learn even from those you think beneath you, especially from those you think beneath you. I looked at the burned flag's ashes, still visible in my memory, and finally understood what she had been trying to teach me all along. Some symbols need to burn, not to destroy what they represent, but to clear away the pride and prejudice that prevents us from seeing clearly. She had let me burn her flag, and in doing so, she had burned away my arrogance. The question now was what I would build from the ashes.